Well, welcome back to Imperfect, the heart-centered leadership podcast. I think we have just as good a conversation before we hit record. And Greg, I just want to welcome you to the show. And we were joking about thunder and lightning and raining and just those nights when we want to sleep. And then the next thing it's 4 a.m. And then you start thinking about tomorrow. So all things distraction, we're going to have a great conversation. So I'm going to dig into my leadership questions if you're ready.
I'm ready.
And my first leadership question is around the power of story in leadership. So you have spent years storytelling, the spoken word, and connecting music with audiences all over the globe. So my question is, how can leaders harness the power of storytelling to build trust, inspire their teams, and foster that emotional connection within an organization?
Well, here's the good news, is that it's not an immense challenge that one needs to overcome. It's not a hurdle that one needs to leap over. Simply begin telling stories. And what I mean by that is, in front of the group, rather than just recite reports and statistics, tell a story. Tell a story about why it's meaningful. And even just relaying a story of why these statistics are meaningful will add value to those statistics and connect them to the listeners. And I find that that's true no matter what stage I've been on. And I mean physical stage, whether it's been on a stage in front of 3,000 people or whether it's on the back of a flatbed trailer, whatever it might be. I'm just thinking of wild examples.
Yeah.
When you connect with an audience, the connection doesn't come through just saying words. It comes through saying something that's relatable, and story really matters. So even your intro today, the fact that I was up until 4 a.m. because here in Seattle, we had a windstorm last night, tells your listeners something about me. Well, they know that I'm really tired today. What they also know is that we have something in common, right? If there was a tremendous storm, they'd be awake too. Those points are what story does. They draw us together and draw connections between us.
Well, and it's interesting. I want to say two things. My listenership is in 87 countries, and they know that you're going to get my good energy and my good juju, and you're going to be ready to go in 30 minutes from now.
I love it. I'm feeling good.
But when you talked about that framing, I was speaking a few years ago. It was before COVID, so 2019, at an International Women's Day event. And the woman before me was phenomenal. And she talked about her PhD and what she chose to do her dissertation in. And she was going on about the research and the data that you spoke of. And it was in that moment, I was speaking after her. And I thought, I'm totally going to change my talk. Because what she chose to do her PhD in, which was on tall poppy syndrome, by the way, I had experienced that for 3 years until a mentor said, start your own company. And I thought, what a great segue. I mean, I had a great talk prepared, but I got up and said, the power of change, the power of influence, the power of storytelling. So as soon as you said that, you brought me right to that moment, which I love. So this is
important, right? It's
very
important.
important.
So I'll give your listeners a couple quick examples of the same thing from my perspective. Is that I'm an admitted expert on a cultural anthropologist named Ernest Becker, who talked about meaning, what matters most to us, self-esteem, and how we get a sense of meaning in our lives. Great. I just paraphrased an entire lifetime of research, right? There's 2 approaches I could take when I get on stage to communicate that. I could stand on stage, talk about Becker's work, talk about self-esteem, why things matter to us. I could draw on Nietzsche, Kierkegaard. I could draw on philosophers and go deep into philosophy if I chose. Or I could tell you a story about how my parents met. And they met randomly outside of a dance in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania on a rainy night. And they realized immediately in one another, I'm literally getting goosebumps while I'm saying this, what was most important was the connection that they felt in that first moment. All of a sudden, I've reached the same point that I would reach if I delved into Nietzsche and Kierkegaard and Becker and all of the other thinkers and Otto Rank and all these other thinkers about what matters most. Where do we find meaning? If I got on stage after you and you did philosophy, maybe I would tell the story of my parents' meeting. If you got on stage and said, let me tell you about my parents' meeting, I'd be backstage going, oh boy, okay, I better dive into philosophy today. Different approaches, right?
Yeah,
But story can get us to the same point as
absolutely.
decades of philosophy
Yeah.
and research. So,
Yeah, totally agree.
mhm.
Okay, my next question's around emotional intelligence with a little dash of resilience. You've engaged with people from diverse backgrounds, often in high pressure situations. What role has emotional intelligence played in your own resilience as a leader? And how can you help leaders, especially our listeners, cultivate great self awareness and empathy when they're interacting with people daily?
That's a great question. And the first thing that comes to mind is let's not get lost in our own narrative. And what I mean by that is, as a leader, have the potential of getting lost in our own narrative. I am the leader of this company, of this group, of this organization, and therefore I need to. That's a dangerous road to take. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, effective leaders with emotional and are those with emotional intelligence. But I was going to say, effective leaders with emotional intelligence are ones who connect with and inspire people more effectively. So when we take a step back and we think, not just I am this because I fit the mold, but I am this because it's meaningful to me.
Mhm.
I'm here as a leader because it means something to me to work with this team. I'm here as a leader because the organization and its mission means something to me. Then all of a sudden, we're part of something. And that part
Mhm.
of something is core to the human experience. It is essential to us. We are social creatures and we connect with one another most strongly through the dynamic of interaction. Well, when a leader remembers that, and a leader remembers, okay, if the team is with me, then we're going to accomplish more. And the way to get there is through not being lost in one's own narrative, but rather being more immersed in the moment. So emotional intelligence plays in. What are you feeling and why? Is it okay to admit that you were up till 4 a.m. because of the wind outside and that you feel a little tired today? I think that admittance of that draws us more close in this conversation, draws me more connected to your listeners, and in a similar context, would draw a leader more connected to their team. If they admitted something about themselves because they were aware of it, or told a story in the moment that they thought people would appreciate and enjoy and connect with because they knew and could sense empathically where the audience was, emotional intelligence, absolutely essential for quality leadership.
Wouldn't it be a lovely world if everyone would just remove that extrinsic cloak of obligation? Oh,
Absolutely.
what a world it would be.
What a world it
Okay,
would be.
let's talk about heart-centered leadership because that's my jam and
I
maybe a
love it.
little dash of social impact. So, with the work that you've done spanning many humanitarian efforts, social change, and personal transformation, the trifecta you are, how can leaders balance business goals with heart centered decision making, ensuring that their leadership will create not only a lasting impact, but be beyond that bottom line, those extrinsic things we were just chatting about?
Absolutely. I would say be malleable. Be malleable and be willing to shift and change and move and dodge and weave a bit. That doesn't mean shift like all the way over here that you're off the screen and out of line, but be willing to shift and change a bit, right?
Yeah.
If you're heart centered, if you're emotionally intelligent, if you're paying attention to the people that you serve, you're going to be able to be malleable. You're going to have to change in the moment from time to time so that you're serving people best. Because if you're just going with the so-called party line or the reason to be, that's fine, but things change in the moment. I mean, sometimes the wind is really intense in the middle of the night, and that affects the way you communicate. Go with it. Be malleable, be willing to adapt in the moment. I think that's really, really essential. And I think it leads to more effective work if we're more empathic and listening to people and being willing to kind of go where the flow takes us a bit. That does not mean that what we do is go 100% only from the heart. We're intelligent creatures. Humans have unique intellectual capacities that other creatures on the earth don't. which is not to put down animals. I love animals. But the point is that we too are animals, but we're really intelligent creatures. We need to embrace our intelligence. We need to embrace our ability to think critically in situations, but we also have to embrace the fact that we are empathic and emotional creatures too. And
Absolutely.
yeah, as we hurtle through an uncertain world and towards an uncertain end, we have to remember that we're all in that together. So we dodge and weave and move together, and we're going to get the results that not only that we want, but that are more in line with our values when we do.
I love it. Okay, let's talk about our last leadership question, and it's all around overcoming fear, but also cultivating that authenticity, which I think we've been kind of dripping on over the last three questions. Many leaders struggle with fear, whether it's feel of failure, speaking up, or oh my gosh, what if I make the wrong decision? And we love imperfection on this show, hence the name. So, given your background in performance and public speaking, what strategies would you recommend, Greg, for leaders to overcome fear and really take the full step into leading authentically?
I would say the first step to authenticity is to embrace fear and to embrace the fact that sometimes things feel uncomfortable and sometimes you're nervous, and to embrace that and go with it. I think that if you had for example, a presentation to give in front of an audience and you were terrified, well, what are some approaches that one might take? You could walk out on stage and say, "Good evening. I'm very happy to be here tonight," and lie. You could walk out on stage and say, "You know what? I'm terrified today." Terrified to be in front of this audience. Might not work in every situation, but I got to tell you, if somebody came out on stage and said, "I'm terrified to be here today," rather than "I'm really happy to be here today," if they said, "I'm terrified to be here today," I would lean in. I would be like, "Why? Okay, what can I do as an audience member to be more attentive, to help soothe their fear?" I think that those approaches are essential when it comes to fear, to embrace it and to recognize that if we're doing good work, we're always going to be on the edge of what's comfortable for us. It's like going to the gym. Let's say you and I decide we're going to get in shape this year, and we go to the gym. And what we do is we walk in, we do a push-up or some semblance of one, or a couple sit-ups. You know what I mean? And then we sit in the sauna. At the end of the year, we're not going to have the results that we would get if we pushed ourselves a bit each time. And through consistency, pushing ourselves a bit, embracing fear, embracing the fact that if we're on the edge of our abilities, which is a great place to be, that it's going to feel uncomfortable and awkward. It's going to feel a little overwhelming at times. It's going to feel unsettling. It's going to feel intimidating. If we embrace that and we communicate that and share that maybe, or at least let that inform what we say and how we say it, we're going to be more effective communicators, certainly, and we're going to be more relatable as leaders.
Absolutely. Great answer. Okay, I'm going to switch to my Fab Four.
Okay?
These are just four questions where we want you to put your professional brain to the side,
Okay?
and we want our listeners to get to know you a little bit. And I'm opening the vortex of vulnerability in season 5. So, first question. Let's get really vulnerable here. So, Greg, I want you to finish this sentence. If people really knew me, they would know.
That I am constantly terrified, and that it's only through establishing a very close personal relationship with terror that I accomplish all the things that I accomplish. It's literally, it's Indiana Jones. It's the moment in Indiana Jones where he's asked, "Hey, how are you going to go after the ark and find the, retrieve the ark or whatever?" And he says, "I don't know. I'm making this up as I go." That is literally my life, making it up as I go, figuring it out, being terrified and doing it anyway. That's what.
And that's entrepreneur 101. I love it. I have so many friends that say, we talk about something and you have an idea and then like you just go do it. And I'm like, yep, that's entrepreneurship.
100%.
But you haven't got everything figured out. And I'm like, yep, that's
Yep.
called structure and discipline. Get
That's exactly
started and keep it. I love that. See, only entrepreneurs get this. Okay. If you could pick a song that represents your leadership style, what song would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, so this is going to sound a little self-inflating, but for years I sang in a band, in a punk rock band actually, and we had a song that was called Reflections. And at the end of this song, and I'm only doing this preface because people wouldn't know the song. If I said, "Oh, Stairway to Heaven," everyone would be like,
Oh,
Cool.
okay.
Right. But Reflections was about being in a frustrated or confused place, being in a place where we are overwhelmed by circumstance, by our humanity, or by the circumstances of society and whatnot, and that we want something more. That is the key. That's the last lines of the song. And we want something more. And I'm entirely convinced that effective leadership, at least for me, is about wanting something more. And effective communication and connection is about wanting something more. And leading a fulfilled life is about wanting something more. So yeah, if I can be so egotistical and bold as to say the song that I wrote as my answer, it's about wanting something more. That's what we
I,
want.
you know what? I don't think it's egotistical. I think it's
Okay.
confident and
Good.
proud.
Good.
There's a difference.
I'm glad.
I
Yeah, I
love
didn't.
it.
Yeah, I didn't preface it by saying, "Well, let me refer to the greatest song ever written." No. I
Yeah.
just
No,
happened.
it's a fun question, and let's just say all genres have been
Great.
appropriately represented, including songwriting, like you've done so well. So,
Great.
okay, question 3. This is the doggy bag. What is your leadership takeaway for our listeners today?
I would. The first thing comes to mind is be vulnerable, but I'm going to say more be authentic and be more authentically you. I would love to see more leaders be more authentically you, not you or me, but you, dear listener. I would love to see more of you and hear and experience more of you, so that when you write your blog and post your video or do your presentation, that I walk away from that going, wow, I know them a little. I feel like I know that. Wow, I feel like I know them. That's a great place to be as a leader, in my opinion. It's a great place to be
I love
because
that.
yeah, it adds another layer of
Yeah,
connection for
it does.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Well, before I get you to finish the show, for someone who's terrified, you have great energy.
I'm so glad.
For being a little sleep deprived, you did really well.
Thank you so
And
much.
the secret sauce is really in everything we've talked about, being transparent and authentic and imperfect. And some days it's okay to bump along because life can be hard and the world is a bit heavy. So thank you for wanting to be on the show. I have loved meeting you and interviewing you, and we're going to put all your contact details and the link to your book and your bio so everybody can connect with you. And I'll ask you to finish this sentence for me, Greg, to close out the show. Heart-centered leadership is.
It's about diving in with the fullness that of you that you have to offer, and then listening to what others have to offer as well, and coming together as a team amidst that.